Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. This is L3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves, South Florida. And today's date is Thursday, October 5th, 2017. Yeah, I'm just chilling at the Broward County Main Library in the heart of downtown Fort Lauderdale. Oh yeah, rainy. Looks like some tropical wave is coming through us. Maybe hitting the Gulf of Mexico. They're saying tropical storm in Nicaragua, but maybe heading up the coast. I'm not so sure. I gotta keep tabs on that. Hurricane season is not done yet, so folks within the Atlantic Ocean area need to pay attention. Of course, the Gulf of Mexico, and don't forget the brothers and sisters of the Pacific region as well. It was just interesting. I could be very frank. I posted Mike Adams from Natural News on the Mission Impossible on like 10 reasons why the Las Vegas massacre was completely BS, total BS. And it's not saying that people didn't die or anything like that, but based on certain articles he was examining, he actually countered his viewpoints, which is very critical. And the main objective, he always says, is like question everything. Don't like take things on face value. And so it doesn't matter if you agree or not. Like every other person has its pros and cons. But the main objective is the bigger picture. Well, there was a time I posted on Facebook, and one of my pen pals may have struck a nerve and start being, how dare you, putting this fake news, this and that. And he did a whole essay, like almost a whole essay on it in those areas. And I'm not, condemning this individual, but they're good people on here. Well, folks, my Facebook pen pals are good folks. So I'm not going to argue about that at all. So to be very sincere, I was very critical on some of the area. I do say I do believe is considered a Operation Gladio format of what occurred in a horrific event. However, if there's a good, viable information that's concrete that proves me wrong, and I can accept that too. I'm not going to just see that in another way. But so I just explain my end, and it would go back and forth. I didn't go really too crazy over it. Sometimes you got everyone's emotions that are different, and of course even some of my other colleagues I know who are on my Facebook pen pal list as well made those comments on it as well, and I went on there. It looks like she took it off. I don't know why, and it's like I said, it's okay to have those views. And sometimes even in these horrific events, you're going to have that knee-jerk reaction where their emotions supersede our logic. And it happens to everyone, including myself. But the only thing is, you always got to question. And that's why, like myself, I don't jump to conclusions. And just say it's fake and this and that. That's completely irrelevant. But based on the research I've done, or say my homework, I made those claims in good faith. And I'm not the only one that is saying it. So, like I said, you always got to observe responsibly. I always tell my listeners, even on people on my Facebook page, my pen pals, and my followers on Twitter, and so forth, other social media groups, and they understand. Always got to observe responsibly. And hey, we're going to have our disagreements. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that at all. We have to always want the truth. If we're all seeking the truth and what really happened, then that's a common interest. You can never ever use face value. And of course, try to send me something from the New York Times, which I'm not too crazy about it. However, there's some good journalists in that institution. There's other mainstream newspapers as well. However, you have higher ups, the editor above, call all the shots. I said many of them have left and doing their own thing. And even in addition, they hear about talk about gun control, or let's talk about gun control and so forth. You want to blame the NRA, and you know how I feel about that. It's completely inapplicable. But the truth of the matter is, my friends, cui bono, who benefits? That's the question. Allah, look what happened in the new millennium, September 11th, 2001. Which I still say was the biggest mistake they made in the new millennium. I'm talking about the New World Order. A lot of light bulbs have been popping up. It has its slopes, down slopes too, in the movement, where the families questioned. And I don't blame them one bit. Whatever they do, don't give up the cause. Yes, there's times you gotta sit down, reorganize, and think, and lay low for it. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's always good to rejuvenate yourself and how to restructure, rephrase, get people's attention. Men like myself never use that term inside job because it's too vague and people won't comprehend. But if you use the New World Order agenda and explain everything with finesse and with fidelity, get their eyes open, get them thinking. Trying to get to them, trying not to let your passion supersede it. Like I said, happened to me too. Don't worry. We all have those. We all make those human errors, my friend. So always ask questions. Seek the truth. A lot of stuff is happening. I'm going to add this video I'm going to add on here, my footnotes, which is really good, by Robert Steele. He was a CIA officer, ran false flag ops, and he says Las Vegas is a false flag. It's over 33 minutes long. It's on the Richie Allen Show, which is from the David Icke Network in Britain. Real good interview. Main objective is to get the people to think. So I'll be talking a few of that on the possible police state and tyrannical laws. I don't want to say tyrannical laws, but trying to push stuff that will benefit them, not the people of the United States. So, we're going to talk about Catalonia, and of course, interesting thing about Thailand. Yeah. Southeast Asia, who include communists, fake communists, which is considered U.S. proxies, land destroyer. So, first thing we'll be talking about here came out today by the Future of Freedom Foundation, America's Warfare State and the Las Vegas Massacre by Jacob G. Hamburger. When it comes to the massacre in Las Vegas, I am on the same page as John Whitehead, the president of the Weatherford Institute, whose article we regularly publish here at the Future Foundation. Consider what he writes is an excellent letter. Mass shootings and the military-industrial complex's culture of violence turned deadly, which I highly recommend reading. That's a good idea. I might have to read that too. It came out October 3rd, so I'll definitely got to read that. So who's to blame for the violence? There is a common denominator, and that's the war-drenched, violence-imbued, profit-driven military-industrial complex that has invaded almost every aspect of our lives. Ask yourself, who are these soldiers modeling themselves after? Where are they finding the inspiration for their weaponry and tactics? Whose stance and techniques are they mirroring? In almost every instance, you can connect the dots back to the military. We are a military culture. We have been a nation of war for most of our existence. We are a nation that makes a living from killing through defense contracts, weapons manufacturing, and endless wars. The point I have been making for some time now is a variation of Whitehead's that what seems to be random acts of mass violence here in America are rooted in the Pentagon's and CIA's permanent and ongoing death machine, which has been killing millions of people in overseas lands for decades. See, for example, in my articles, U.S. violence abroad begets violence at home. Charlottesville and America's death machine. So far, it seems it's only Whitehead and me who are making this critical, important point, that it's America's warfare state that is the root of mass violence in America. Maybe there are more, and I am just not aware of it. My hunch is that more people begin thinking about what Whitehead and I are saying and reflecting on it. Our numbers are going to grow. We all know about terrorist retaliation for the death and destruction of the Pentagon, and the CIA have been wrecking overseas. Although many mainstream pundits and commentators were extremely reluctant, even scared to point to blowback from U.S. foreign policy after the 9/11 attacks, I think it's safe to say that most people have now come to accept that anti-American terrorism is a cost of U.S. interventionism abroad. But here's the basic issue. It is possible to have a militarized secret society, one in which the government is killing large numbers of people abroad, having it without any adverse effect on people back home. It's a question. As I previously pointed out, I'm no psychiatrist, but common sense leads to but one conclusion. When the government is killing millions of people abroad on a permanent, ongoing basis, it can't help but affect the mindsets of people back at home. Just look at American society. Notice the tremendous intolerance that people have for views of others, especially on college campuses, which have historically been places where opposing views are an enshrined part of college culture. Notice the rage, incivility, or rudeness that has come to characterize many Americans who lose their temper for rather inconsequential reasons. They blow up for minor reasons and then beat up or shoot people who have slighted them in minor ways, including their own spouses. There is a massive alcoholism and drug addiction in American society. After raging the war on drugs for decades, officials say they're not even close to victory. That's because more Americans than ever are choosing to trip out with mind-altering substances and disregarding the risk of being sent to prison for 10 to 20 years. There are ever-increasing suicide rates, including among young people. And then there are the random acts of mass violence, like we just seen in Las Vegas, where Americans seem to love killing other Americans. At the risk of belaboring the obvious, none of this normal or healthy is a sign of deeply dysfunctional society. I contend it is a natural consequence of a governmental death machine that has killed and that continues to kill tens of millions of people, as Whitehead emphasizes, related militarization of American society. As I have pointed out in my articles, the notion has always been that if Americans can be protected from having to see evidence of massive death toll their government personnel is inflicting, there wouldn't be any adverse impact here at home. The U.S. mainstream press has played its role in this process, protecting Americans by not showing photographs of the dead or their body parts. But it is a pipe dream from the beginning. The stench of massive death, even thousands of miles away, ultimately begins seeping into fibers of everyone's being here at home and into their subconscious minds. It is inescapable. And it's worse than that. There is also the life of the lie to consider. Ministers across the land, announcers at big sports events, airline officials, they have all helped to maintain the lie that the troops are over there killing all those people in defense of our rights and freedoms. That's been a charade, and all those killing have done in self-defense. And the notion has been, as long as people believe it, that's all that matters. The problem is that it's never been true. The sad reality is that of all tens of millions of people that the U.S. government has killed since 1945. Not one single one ever initiate an act of violence against the United States. In every single U.S. killing, it has been the U.S. government that has been the initiator of the violence against the victim. The rights and freedoms bromide has been a lie from the get-go. A lie that repeated in churches, sport events, airports, and elsewhere on a regular basis. How can a massive lie of the how can a massive life of the lie not adversely affect people psychologically and spiritually? It's impossible. People who live the life of the lie are ultimately going to show it one way or the other. What better time for Americans to confront the truth about the warfare state than now? Powerful stuff, my friends. And I'm going to we'll check on that mass shooting too by John White. Always enjoyed his work. It's just a manifestation of death. And all the facade, the wet dream, and people stand up, and all even the Department of Defense, the National Guard donate money to these sporting facilities. Oh, look, he's back home from Afghanistan, protecting our freedoms. Or have them come out with the military in the football games, do the national anthem. Now they're doing the kneeling. Of course, now the Department of Defense, National Guard are mad. The Pentagon as well. We're going to take the money away from them. See, folks, it's a charade. They think that an empire is good. As long as you're free. You can live in a police state. Be treated like little peons and peasants. And go, as long as it's over there, it's okay. As long as it's on our soil, I hate it and I condemn it. And we gotta really get angry. And of course, more things to come, right? Something to really examine, to be exact. When we're gonna stop the madness, right? We got what it takes to make that happen. People say, "Not can't do anything about it." You know why? Because you're one of those that stick your thumbs up your rectum and go, "I want respect." That's why. Police state's okay as long as I got my sports. Police empire's alright as long as I got my stupid ass idiot box with all the garbage to choose from. Remember that, my friends. What is going to be your intake? What are you going to be doing something about? I really recommend check out John Whitehead's article on that. Because when I say it's ISIS is involved. We'll go there attack Syria. We'll attack Iran. Iran's behind it. They may use that as well. So, I'll be right back. Okay, so next one we're going to be checking out, my friends, came from Judge Andrew Napolitano off of townhall.com. Can the government keep us safe? Here we go again. The United States has been rattled to the core by an unspeakable act of evil perpetrated by a hater of humanity. A quiet, wealthy loner rented a hotel suite in Las Vegas, armed with a shooting platform with automatic weapons, knocked out 2 of the windows and shot at innocent 32 floors below. 59 people were murdered and 527 were injured. The killer used rifles that he purchased illegally and altered illegally. He effectively transformed several rifles that emit 1 round per trigger, pull and present the next round in the barrel for immediate use semi-automatics into rifles that emit rounds continuously when the trigger is pulled. Hundreds of rounds per minute automatics. Those are some automatic rifles that were manufactured before 1986 can lawfully be purchased today with a onerous permit. Automatic weapons generally have been unlawful in the United States since 1934. Even the police and military are not permitted to use them here. I present this brief summary of the recent tragedy and the implicated gun laws to address the issue of whether the government can keep us safe. Those who fought in the revolution and wrote the Constitution knew that the government cannot keep us safe because they used violence against the king and his soldiers to secede from Great Britain. They recognized that all people have a natural right to use a weapon of contemporary technological capabilities to protect themselves, their liberty, and property. They sought to assure the exercise of this right by enacting the now well-known Second Amendment, which prohibits the government from infringing upon the right to keep and bear arms. When the Supreme Court interpreted this right in 2008 and 2010, it referred to the right to keep and bear arms as pre-political. Pre-political means that the right pre-existed the government. It is a secular term for a fundamental or natural right. A natural right is one that stems from our humanity, such as freedom of thought, speech, religion, self-defense, privacy, travel, etc. It does not come from the government and exists in the absence of government. The recognition of a right as a fundamental or natural or pre-political is not a mere academic exercise. This is so because the rights in this category cannot be abrogated by the popular will. Stated differently, just as your right to think as you wish and say what you think cannot be interfered with or taken away in America by legislation. So, 2, your right to own, carry, and use arms of the same sophistication as are generally available to bad guys and to government officials cannot be interfered with or taken away by legislation. This is at least the modern theory of the Second Amendment. Notwithstanding the oath that all governments have taken to uphold the Constitution, and many governments reject the Second Amendment. Their enjoyment of power and love of office rank higher in their hearts and minds than does their constitutionally required fidelity to the protection of personal freedoms. They think the government can right any wrong and protect us from any evil and require for us any good just to keep us safe, even if constitutional norms are violated in doing so. Can the government keep us safe? In a word, no. This is not a novel or arcane observation, but rather a rational conclusion from knowing history and everyday life. In Europe, where to keep and bear arms is nearly non-existent for those outside government. Killer strikes with bombs and knives and trucks. In America, killer uses guns and only stop when they are killed by a law-abiding civilian or by the police. The answer to government failure is a candid recognition that in a free society, one in which we are all free to come and go as we see fit without government inquiry or interference, we must be prepared for these tragedies. We must keep ourselves safe, as well as those whom we invite onto our properties. Surely, if the President of the United States were to have appear at the concert venue in Las Vegas to address the crowd, the Las Vegas killer would never have succeeded in bringing his arsenal to his hotel room. Government always protects his own. Shouldn't landowners who invite the public to their properties do the same? Add to government's incompetence is useless, intrusive, omnipresent, and in present-day America, the National Security Agency, the federal government's domestic spying agency, captures in real time the contents of every telephone call, email, text message, as well as all data sent over fiber optic cables everywhere. in the U.S. Thus, whatever electronic communications the Las Vegas killer participated in prior to his murders are in the possession of the federal government. Mass surveillance is expressly prohibited by the Fourth Amendment, but the government does it nevertheless. It claims it does to keep us safe, yet this exquisite constitutional violation results in too much information for the feds to examine in a timely manner. That's why the evidence of these massacres, from Sandy Hook to Boston to Orlando to San Bernardino to Las Vegas, is always discovered too late. At this writing, the government has yet to reveal what it knew about the Las Vegas killer's plan before he executed them and executed innocents. This leaves us in a very precarious position today. The government cannot keep us safe, but it claims that it can. It wants to interfere with our natural rights to self-defense and privacy. But wherever it does so, it keeps us less safe. And in whatever arena it keeps us less safe and falsely fosters the impression that we are safe, we become less free. Yes, sir. That is the truth, my friends. And he hit it out of the ballpark once again. So all those individuals are going to say, we've got to keep us safe. The government's responsible for protecting us? Absolutely not. Maybe, say, in the case of war, they have that obligation. But remember, this is why we have militias. And this has nothing to do, Massacre has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Get that out of your minds. Don't listen to these bobble-headed peons that can't even tie their own shoelaces or wipe their own rear ends. We are the first line of defense. The police aren't obligated to protect us as individuals, but they do the best they can. So when I hear all this propaganda, registration, for conscripted insurances, all this stuff on firearms, I say, piss on you. You haven't learned anything, but use the same bobblehead rhetoric that's being used for a long time. Do yourselves a favor. Leave it to Beaver. It's only a TV show. Don't bring it to modern reality, to the real world, the dangerous world, where many people out there are very vicious, evil, wicked, and believe the might is right and the weak is wrong. The right has to inherit the earth, while the weak and pathetic inherit the yoke. Might is right. By Ragnar Redwood. Just to give you some examples. Dangerous world is, my friends. You better start really reading and looking and preparing the best you can. Nothing is perfect. This is why in my early shows, when I say about this whole thing what happened in Vegas, never ever forfeit your natural born rights for security, which is actually tyranny. If so, you just become, if you support it, then you just become an entrapper. If you do it consistently, you're an entrapaholic. Want to fight the war on terror and tyranny? Protect and preserve our Bill of Rights culture, which is pre-political existence. That's how I see the world. It's not playing macho man or anything like that. That is the truth. Saying this in the down-to-earth point of view. Well, we're going to do a couple on Catalonia. And this is here from the Foundation for Economic Education. Came out today. It says that Catalonia shows the danger of disarming civilians. A October 1st show, the U.S. Why We Need Civilian Guns by Laura Williams. Since the tragic murder of 59 peaceful concertgoers in Las Vegas Sunday, I have heard well-meant intention Americans for all political corners echoing heartbroken and tempting refrains. We can't just ban guns. Surely we can all get together on the rocket launchers. This would happen less often. We have enough military. While victims are still in surgery, some took to television and social media to criticize the outdated and dangerous Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. They have lived so long in a safe, stable society that they falsely believe armed citizens are a threat to life and liberty for everyone. Those who claim to see no necessity or benefits of individual gun ownership need only to look at the rolling hills of Catalonia, where a live social experiment is currently unfolding. Let's start here. Just hours before an alleged lone gunman opened fire in a Mandalay Bay casino, the citizens of a small region surrounding Barcelona, Spain, cast a vote for their regional independence. Catalonia citizens have a unique language, culture, and history, and considered Spain a neighboring power that not their rightful rulers. So as American continental conquerors historically did, as Texans and Californians occasionally threatened to do, Catalonia wished to declare independence and secede. Polling stations in Catalonia were attacked by heavily armed agents of the state with riot gear and pointed rifles. Spanish National Police fired rubber bullets and unleashed tear gas canisters on voters, broke down polling center doors, disrupted the vote, and destroyed enough ballots to throw results into serious doubt. Exceedingly few of those would be patriots were armed. In Spain, firearm ownership is not protected individual right. Civilian firearms licenses are restricted to cases of extreme necessity if the government finds genuine reason. Background checks, medical exams, and license restrictions further restrict access. Licenses are granted individually by caliber and model, with automatic weapons strictly forbidden to civilians. Police can demand a citizen to produce a firearm at any time for inspection or confiscation. Spain has enacted, it would seem, the kind of common sense restrictions American gun control advocates crave. Come on, you folks out there, go to Catalonia. Let's see how safe you really are. But of course, that doesn't mean that Spanish citizens don't buy guns. In fact, Spanish taxpayers maintain an enormous arsenal of weapons, which are all in the hands of professional armed police forces with an administration of the state who are persons in charge of providing security to the population. Those agents of the state weren't providing security to the population of Catalonia on Sunday. They were pointing guns at would-be founding patriots who had challenged the ruler of their oppressors. If somebody tries to declare the independence of part of the territory, something that cannot be done, we will have to do everything possible to apply the law, Spain's justice minister said in a public address. While many polling places were closed or barricaded, 2.3 million voters, 9% in favor of independence, were permitted to vote. He claimed because security forces decided that it wasn't worth using force because of the consequences that could have. The consequences of the government using force to control those it's sworn to protect must be high. When citizens are armed, the consequence for tyranny rise as its likelihood falls. Armed tyrants, Americans have grown too trustful of the state, too ready to assume bureaucrats have only our best interests at heart. Even with the maniacal man-child in the Oval Office, many are seemingly eager to turn over individual liberty to those who promise to manage our lives for us. The United States was designed to be the smallest government in the history of the world, with no standing army, a little right to intrude the private activities of its citizens. Instead, we have the most powerful and intrusive government in human history, with 800 permanent bases in 70 countries, unfathomable firepower and staggering surveillance capabilities, unchecked abuses of power, and are routine and tolerated. Specific agencies including the IRS and the FDA have military weapons according to the Open Books Oversight Report, The Militarization of America, which has a link for that. So please, my friends, read it. Share this to people that believe we need tougher firearm laws. Come on, my friends. Show that to them. If they're sensitive, tell them too effing bad, right? Among the most intrusive programs, including the Department of Homeland Security and the Transportation Safety Authority, do not disclose their weaponry budget. They're exceptional, but you folks out there want us to register everything so the government can have it, but they're special. You go, that's okay, exceptional. They can do what we can, exceptional. Benefit of state will get us ahead. That's right. You just made declare yourself to be Uncle Toms to the state with that mindset. Well, we'll continue on. The number of armed government officials with the arrest and firearm authority has doubled since 1996. The U.S. has now more armed civilian federal officers, 200,000 plus, than U.S. Marines, 182,000. The IRS spends millions of taxpayers' dollars annually on pump-action shotguns, AR-15, riot gear, and special forces contractors who train thousands of special agents in targeting American citizens. That shows their true manhood. Yes, I'm a man. I work for the government. And when I take people's rights away, I'm special. But I have to have Palmolive hands so everyone else do the dirty work. Okay, so now we'll say this. I'm being a little sarcastic, but hopefully folks can understand where I'm coming from. Local police, sheriffs, and state troopers have also been armed to wage war against American citizens. Battlefield weapons are being given to state and local police, allegedly to combat drug trafficking and fight terrorist threats at local pumpkin festivals. Military SWAT-style raids are used to serve search warrants for low-level drug possession, not hostage situations. Police, relatives, and neighbors of alleged criminals have had government guns held to their children's heads. Violations of civil rights, including illegal searches and the seizure of money and property without evidence of any crime, are commonplace. That's true, but that is turning. Law enforcement requests military equipment directly from the Pentagon war-fighting machine. Tanks, machine guns, rocket launchers, tear gas, camouflage shields, and gas masks. Well, if we have it, they'll call us criminals. Oh my goodness. Military equipment is often purchased with asset forfeiture slush funds to bypass legislative appropriations challenge. And you know that Hickman Jeff Sessions wants a more civil asset forfeiture on the federal level because he can play with himself, but he says, I can't, even though I'm a Christian, I'm going to screw everybody anyway in the name of Jesus. That's how blasphemous his mindset is on that agenda. A high percentage of civilian law enforcement who are military veterans, 1 in 5 by some estimates, compound the cultural risk of treating average Americans like enemy combatants. Showdowns between civilians and heavily armed agents of the state in Ferguson, Baltimore, the Oregon Wildlife Refuge, and various other political protests across the country should remain us that gun control advocates won't be reducing the number of guns so much as shifting them all to either federal or criminals' hands. The senseless murder in Las Vegas is a frankly familiar tragedy. But don't say Americans shouldn't be allowed to buy guns. When what you mean is citizens should only be allowed to buy guns for their rulers. Thank you, Dr. Laura Williams. And you know what? That's how you gotta look at it. You want to put your security eggs in the hands of the government, then you're a damn fool. As far as I'm concerned, you breach your oath. You breach your oath as a voter. on protecting, defending both the U.S. Constitution and your state constitution. That's right. You consider felons if you believe you should be transferred to them and condemn us. That's a felon. That's treasonous. And you know what? It makes you less honorable than Benedict. Prove me wrong if you dare. I like to hear your sassy, baseless rhetoric. Has nothing to do with being Rambo either, but the name of principle. So, we're gonna hit one here. Came from Counterpunch. They're okay. They got some, like everybody else. The pros and cons, but you know what? That's cool. It's human, but doesn't mean they're always wrong. Like every other article I read, they mean I'm going to support the one area. I like to hear, this is pretty cool here. It's on October 4th. It says here, busted in Barcelona almost, by James Bovard. I heartily support the Catalonia referendum on succession, even though I was almost arrested the only time I visited Barcelona. I hit Spain as the next to last country within a 5-mile hitchhiking jaunt in the summer of 1977. Within 10 minutes of getting dropped off south of the French border, I realized that my 2 years of Spanish classes in Warren High School were not worth a busted pinata. Admittedly, I was the worst student in the class. Barcelonians spoke so quickly while thrashing the air with their hands that I could only nod or sigh. Several hundred words a minute was brisker than I had growing up in the Appalachian Mountains. I spent 4 pleasant days roaming Barcelona while staying in the dirt cheap pension where I was the only guest without a thunderous TB cough. Spain was definitely the most backward country I visited. Dictator Francisco Franco had died only 2 years earlier. The clearest proof it was still in the dark ages. Hitchhiking was illegal, but I tried not to let the bias me against Spaniards. I view such prohibitions simply as transactions costs. In the 1970s, equivalent of traffic speed cameras. When time came to head back north, I spoke at a spot on the last street before the autopista and motorway entrance. The traffic was light and relatively slow, so my thumb posed no safety hazard to drivers. No luck in the first hour that I got more fraternizing that I wanted. A finger-wagging policeman with the glummest face I saw all summer descended on me. I reached deep within and retrieved my Spanish vocabulary. La siento, I'm sorry, no comprendo, or que lástima, that's too bad. I didn't know enough Spanish to ask him if he got his job because he was a pal of Franco. By the time he walked away, it was clear that I understood I'd be jailed if he caught me out there again. And I'm from the prior experience in the U.S., I knew what regulation-sized handcuffs fit poorly on my large wrist. I respectfully waited 2 minutes after he vanished before resuming hitchhiking. Hour and a half later, I glanced and saw the same cop a block away, closing fast and looking too irate for his own good. In the nick of time, a sickly orange British car with the wrong side steering wheel pulled over, and the driver signaled me to hop in. His vehicle could have fit in the trunk of a Lincoln Continental. I jammed my pack into his back seat and had 15 seconds to spare before I got busted. As we sped away, the passing tussle-headed driver announced, "I'm not going very far tonight. I'm very tired." "Is that because you've been working hard?" I asked. "No, I've been drinking for 3 days." I like these little stories, you know. That explained the empty liquor bottles in the back seat. Unfortunately, the car was heading up to Pyrenees Mountains, not the easiest stretch of driving on the continent. 20 miles there, I was still comparing the risk of riding with the besotted driver versus the Gamma Hooch in the Spanish slammer. When the Brit announced tea time, he pulled off the road. He stepped out of the car and fetched out a large plastic cup. He retrieved a fifth of gin under the seat, poured 8 ounces into the cup, and toppled it off with 2 ounces of orange juice. To make sure I get my vitamin C, he explained. Would you like a sip? I jovially offered. I'll pass. He slugged it down, smacked his lip, and proclaimed it was time to forge on to France. As we ascended to steep mountains, he was driving in the right lane, much slower than most of the other traffic. I kept leaning in his direction, ready to seize the steering wheel if we lost control. But he had plenty of experience in driving smashed. Excuse me. I kept the conversation rattling along to him to keep. Oops, sorry about that. To keep alert, he told me that his family had to remain at their home on the Isle of Wight while he was vacationing in Spain. He explained that he drank too much because he was having a very rough time letting his college-aged kids leave home and go on their way. At least there was an excuse. This 45-year-old guy offered for not weaning himself from a bottle. I eventually persuaded him to pull off the road so we could get some beer and chips. After we entered the roadside bistro, an 18-year-old British lad came over on the table and was instantly bosom buddy with the drivers. The driver was a Conservative Party member and the young guy supported the Liberal Party, but the two agreed that England was the greatest, freest nation, that everybody in the world learned democracy from Britain. The only thing necessary to transform one country into utopia is to leave it briefly and drink heavily. The young guy related how Bobbies in his hometown used their nightsticks to pummel teenage miscreants, and he and the driver agreed that that was a good thing because the boys usually deserved it. I was mystified that anyone who realized official beatings the bombastic launch into any satanic tirade, swearing that the only good German was a dead German. He declared that he'd fight any German in the room, but he said it very loud, so I didn't have to dissuade anyone from stopping him. When he's just slurping down old ale, boasting about his homeland, even radiated desperate fear that he had failed in life. An Englishman later told me the Isle of Wight is known as 80,000 drunks on the rock. As the evening ended and we went in our separate ways, I noticed the young Brit had no knapsack. I asked that. He declared that he didn't want to be bogged down carrying a lot of things. He slept on a concrete slab at a closed gas station that night. I felt like I was traveling first class before. After finding a nook in nearby woods, my knapsack was comfy as my pillow and the 4-star European hotel. In a 4-star European hotel. 40 years down the road, I'm still waiting for the United Nations to recognize any hitchhiker's bias as a human rights violation. That is pretty cute. It's adopted from his book, Public Hooligan. Interesting. That is interesting, right? So that's a little cute little story, I will have to say. But sometimes, my friends, you gotta enjoy life, you gotta know things, and know what you're doing. So, I gotta say, why not? You gotta have fun in life too. Not always about fear and anxiety, but it's life in general, my friends. Enjoy it while you can. So, and by the way, Future of Freedom Foundation. Yeah, it's pretty cute. Okay, my friends, I'll be right back, so stay tuned. Boom, yeah. Okay, do one more thing here. And this is came out today by Land Explorer Report. Actually, New Episode Outlook to be exact, by Joseph Thomas. U.S. proxies in Southeast Asia include fake communists. A quick geopolitical audit of Washington's political and military proxies around the globe reveals a tangled web. At a first glance, it appears contradictory and incoherent. Fascists in Kyiv, who hold extremist views regarding race and religion, enjoy equal standing in Washington and Wahhabi militants across the Middle East and North Africa, or MENA, MENA. Two groups would otherwise find themselves ideologically opposed. Instead of finding themselves toward the common cause, one on behalf of Washington. And Washington itself, which would appear at a glance diametrically opposed to both fascism and Wahhabism, instead counts of both among its closest and most reliable facilitators and functionaries around the globe. And while the rank and file of Americans, Ukrainians, and Wahhabi militants may generally believe in otherwise contradictory and incompatible ideologies, cursory research reveals that the leadership of all three groups are motivated by money and the influence it buys far more than their alleged respective ideology. In Southeast Asia, Wahhabi-inspired militants also serve Washington's interests across the region. They are joined by neoliberal academics and journalists who eagerly serve Washington, London, Brussels, and the Western clubs and networks. These neoliberals seek memberships within, but there are also another curious and perhaps ironic member of this otherwise contradictory alliance opposed communists and socialists. Thailand's communists and the capitalists they love. The most transparent example of this found in Thailand in the form of the United Front for Democracy Against Dictatorship, UDD. The UDD is a lead-free preeminent members of Thailand's former Communist Party include Wang Torjurakan and his wife, Thea Darozet. While the UDD claims to be an independent possible power movement, it is a little more than a street front of by and for the Few Thai Party, or PTP. PTP is the creation of billionaire Thaksin Shinawatra, who served as Thailand's prime minister from 2001 through 2006 when he was finally ousted from power during a swift of bloodless military coup. Since 2006, Shinawatra has mayored Thailand in political turmoil as he attempts to seize back power, temporarily holding it by proxy through his brother-in-law, social mom Wangswat, and more recently through his own sister, Yingluck Shinawatra. Shinawatra is currently living abroad as a convicted criminal and fugitive. He enjoys significant backing from the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union, where he's allowed to regularly travel and conduct business. Shinawatra has a lengthy list of lobbyist contracts in Washington, including firms such as Bakerbus, headed by James Baker. Both Baker and Shinawatra shared a role in the private equity firm, the Carlyle Group, in the late 1990s before Shinawatra ascended in Thai politics. Another lobbyist that he has supported Shinawatra is Kenneth Alderman, who is currently served as a trustee of Freedom House, one of the several U.S. Department fronts that work to undermine one government on behalf of another favored by Washington. Today, Shinawatra, his PTP, and UDD continued undermining political stability in Thailand with the help of a massive and growing network of non-governmental organizations funded by the United States, the United Kingdom, the EU, and private foundations like convicted financial criminal George Soros' Open Society. All the world's a stage. UDD's leadership regularly receives directives from Shinawatra. Its membership openly and shamelessly profess fidelity to Shinawatra, and during rallies regularly featuring video call-ins from Thaksin Shinawatra himself. While the UDD claims to be independent people power movement, in this reality, nothing more than people powering a billionaire foreign-backed political machine, nothing at all to do with empowering the actual people involved. In simpler terms, the return of Shinawatra, his PTP, and his UDD street front to power upon Thailand's political landscape will be victory for imperialism, not strike against it. Not everything that is red is communist. UDD is also commonly referred as to the red shirts, both for the red shirt members literally wear during the U.S. Color Revolution protests and to invoke communist ideology and symbolism as a unifying theme for the movement. However, the UDD clearly has more to do with communism and what known Wahhabi militant groups like Al-Qaeda have to do with genuine Islam. Both are organizations using ideology and symbolism as a smokescreen for the actual interest that truly serves at the expense of the very ideology they claim to represent. Can we say jack-lanterns? Say it one more time. Jack-lanterns. While the proponents of the UDD and Daskin Shinrada's political dynasty will cite a whole handful of socialist policies PTP implemented in Thailand while in power, it should be noted that Thailand before and well after PTP held power has divisive implemented socialist policies as to do virtually all nations on earth. The much vaunted 30 healthcare schemes was already in the drawing board when Daskin Shinrada came to power in 2001. Well, after Shinrada was ousted from power, successive governments have kept policy in place or enhanced it. State institutions, including affordable health or affordable public universities. One moment, can I hear some roar? All right. So, existed before and after Shinrada's time in power. Shinrada actually privatized a nation-state oil enterprise, PTT, a move that Shinrada's opponents have repeatedly tried to overturn, and a move most certainly uncommunist. Subsidy programs have also existed before and after Shinrada's time in power. Under Shinrada's sister terms as Prime Minister between 2011 and 2014, rice subsidies promoted by Shinrada in order to clinch the 2011 election ended up not only helping Thailand's rice farmers, it devastated the rice industry and left nearly 1 million farmers unpaid with their rice water unsold in government warehouses, and was only after the 2014 coup ousted young Shinrada from power and that farmers were finally paid. It is an example of not only the disingenuous populist or socialist policy diverse merely to buy votes, it is also an example on how imposters posed as socialists or even as communists can damage the very ideology as they use a social political smokescreen. Plutocracy. The Red Analyst versus Red Fantasy. Thailand's constitutional monarch has for decades worked nationwide to empower people with the tenets of tools of self-sufficiency. The late King Bormai Adelaji Yade, recently worked to encourage localization, decentralization, and strong self-reliant communities to free people from predation, both from domestic political interests as well as those of wider globalization. Among the many features of the late King Barhamboy Adulaja's work was the promotion of community cooperatives. The cooperatives could include everything from acquiring and distributing the benefits of a common rice mill and other equipment for value-added agricultural processing to joint networks to help package, market, and ship community goods around the country and abroad. The result is a patchwork of strong self-reliant villages across the nation where people depend on themselves and each other to create a fairly distributed wealth rather than on centralized bureaucracy, self-serving political parties, and exploitative policies they implement to further empower and enrich themselves. It is perhaps ironic that supposed communists wrapping themselves in red vehemently condemn these networks and the tenets they are built on, promoting instead a system of patronage headed by the Daskin Shinrada and his PTP political machine, a conglomeration of mafiosos and millionaires, insisting that true democracy be equated with achieving crippling dependency on such patronage networks. In contrast, royal projects being productive and self-sufficient villages, Shinaratra's patronage networks leave entire segments of the population lying around waiting for the next election and the whirlwind of populist handouts they expect to follow a victory for Shinaratra's political proxies. At one point, Shinaratra and the PTP, the UDD, initiated a Red Village program in which an image of Daxin Shinaratra would be affixed to the entrances of villages and its political strongholds in North and Northeast Thailand. These villages would become a de facto exclusion zones for any forms of politics opposed to Shinaratra and his political machine. The obedient villagers who performed well during elections would be rewarded, that those didn't would not be. At one point, the representative of the U.S. Embassy in Thailand would visit representatives of this Red Village network, video here, leading political support and legitimacy to the movement and highlighting once again the true nature of who and what the UDD represents. For those who only need to see color red to be convinced, billionaire Shinaratra's Red Villages seem like progress. For those who actually care about empowering people of Thailand's sovereignty about increasingly multipolar world, it is clear that these Red Villages seek to overwrite progress that has already been made. Red herring versus real anti-imperialism. Together with the U.S. National Endowment for Democracy, NED, and the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, funded networks stretching across Thailand. Shinaratra and his foreign sponsors to seek parallel institutions and networks to crowd out Thailand's own independent institutions, target and undermine Thailand's military and constitutional monarchy, attack and erase Thailand's cultural identity and unity, and render only the nation in Southeast Asia to have a so far avoided Western colonialism a compliant and obedient client regime, vice on Washington's true regional adversary, Beijing. Shinaratra and his UDD is red communism without actual communism. It is yet another movement that used superficial symbolism to ensnare the well-mannering, but one that, upon tracing the money and true motivations that animate it leads to Washington, London, Brussels, not people power. You can see him talking at a Council of Foreign Relations facility. So, another possible bend over Bob, to the New World Order. Yeah, you can say that. The fact that the UDD stands opposed to a constitutional monarchy further lends the movement an attractive narrative that appeals to unrealistic, conceitedly superficial inheritance of not only communism, but also superficial inheritance of anarchy. Also aiding the UDD and attracting support, particularly the Western admirers abroad, are persistent Cold War myths surrounding Thailand's relationship with Washington. Myths that contradict Thailand's actual current shift away from Washington. The fantastical narratives in which fluttering red banners are the only predicate required, contradicting the actual values such as banners represent enable rather than oppose the injustice of imperialism. Such superficiality has likewise enabled Washington-backed movements like Al-Qaeda, which played the roles of pious Muslims fighting against foreign oppressors while all assiduously serving them. Likely many have unwillingly been drawn into Al-Qaeda's narratives, focus on other banners and their books and that they bellowing rather than their own finances, real friends or actual foes. Fight something as large as devastating as real imperialism requires serious analysis that must extend far beyond the superficiality and oversimplification of banner slogans and supposed ideologies. If Washington is capable of creating legions of fascists and Wahhabist militants that serves its cause, it can create communist and any other ideological flavor of proxy it believes can serve its interests when and where needed. With Washington possessing such capability, real analysis can peel back the layers of people and motivations of any given movement, revealing its true colors, and those who refuse to peel back these layers and may in fact be aiding and abetting empire and not resisting. Well, that old saying, always beware who's behind the curtain. Absolutely. So, there's nothing new at all. Part of the order. We all come in shapes and sizes, right? Kio bono, who benefits? Well, one thing, my friend, the people in town are going to make their own decision. Beware of these proxies, frauds, jack-lanterns, plants, provocateurs. Just an example. All these fake comments, all these fake folks, fighting about the same clowns. Doesn't matter. More things change, more seem the same, right? All the world's a stage. So, make sure Thailand should be free from all that, like to the rest of the world. I'm getting ready to fall off to sleep here. Sorry about that. I'm at the libraries. Alright, my friends, thank you for your time, but feel free to download and share it throughout your social media networks if you have any questions, comments, or even send me something that's interesting you may want to check out. Wherever you do, please address your correspondences with the corner. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.minds.com, FutureNet.club, or Patreon.com/LookAtTheLook3rd if you want to be a donor, supporter, lover. It don't matter. I don't mean. I won't say that in a general basis, of course. Or you can hit me too on GAB, which is Gab, GAB.ai, like Twitter, but alternative to Twitter, I would say. In addition, you can email me at lookinluck3@gmail.com, or you cryptid fans, lookinluck03@protonmail.com. Alright, my friends, once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that the demoniac resistance healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love. May your guardian spirits be with you.